There are anime I avoid, even though I really love them. Not because they're bad, and not because they're boring, but because something shifts inside you after watching them, and you're not even sure you wanted that change in the first place. And Re:Zero is one of those anime. And today, I want to honestly explain why it broke me. Not from the perspective of a critic, but as a fan who sometimes feels genuinely shaken by what's happening in the story. If you thought Re:Zero was just a popular isekai with an immortal main character, that's not exactly true, because what I'm about to talk about isn't really about the anime itself. It's about all of us, as viewers. Most anime follow a similar formula. They give you a character, interesting, charismatic, and you watch them. You root for them, you admire them, but you stay a spectator. There's always glass between you and the screen. And I felt like Tappei Nagatsuki, the creator of Re:Zero, deliberately shattered that glass. Subaru Natsuki is basically no one compared to other main characters in anime. He's just an ordinary guy from an ordinary Japanese city. No magic, no secret lineage, no hidden potential. And that's the whole point. The author doesn't give you a hero to look up to. He gives you a mirror. Subaru is essentially me, or you. Just imagine an average person suddenly thrown into a fantasy world with no warning and told to figure it out. No tutorial, no hints, no mentor with all the answers. And while you're watching the anime, there's a moment where you stop thinking, what will Subaru do? And start thinking, what would I do? Most people would say, I'd try to protect them this time. It sounds like the right answer, a good answer. But that's the answer of someone who doesn't yet understand what's coming or what the cost will be, because it won't happen just once. How many times could you endure that? Subaru goes through it over and over for years, and the creators never give him a break. They don't say, okay, you did great, here's your reward. Every time it feels like he's found a way out, the price turns out to be even higher than before. 90% of people in real life would reach their limit by the second loop. Not because they're weak, but because the human mind simply isn't built for that. And when you realize that while watching, it gets genuinely terrifying. There's a moment in Season 2 that I can't get out of my head. Subaru screams I love you to Emilia, and it's not romantic. It's not soft or tender. It's someone who has run out of options. Someone who has seen the absolute worst. And the only thing he has left are those 3 words, and the hope that somehow they might change something. And if Season 2 asked you, how many times can you endure loss? Then Season 4 asks something even more unsettling. By that point, Subaru isn't the same confused guy from the early episodes. He's been through things most people don't experience in an entire lifetime. He's learned to hold himself together, learned to think clearly under pressure, learned to make choices that would have stopped him cold before. And this is where the author makes the cruelest move. They show you that even that isn't enough. That the strength you finally see in him isn't a reward. It's just a new tool the world will use to push him further. And you sit there thinking, wait, hasn't he already given everything? Why does it keep going? And then you realize something, and it's probably the most uncomfortable thought of all, that the world doesn't keep score. His struggle doesn't stack like experience points in an RPG, and it doesn't convert into protection. Season 4 of Re:Zero strips away the last illusion that if you try hard enough, you deserve peace. That's not fantasy logic. That's unfortunately real-world logic. Re:Zero takes that feeling, that complete powerlessness in the face of losing someone important and losing yourself in the process, and stretches it across the entire series. Not as background, but as the central theme. And that's exactly why it's so hard to watch. Because it's not about a fantasy hero in a made-up world. It's about the fear of loss. About how far you're willing to go for someone you love. Subaru is portrayed incredibly well as a human being. He wasn't miserable. He wasn't defeated from the start. He was just a normal guy with a normal life, with humor, ambitions, dreams. He could have become anything, and that's exactly what makes what happens to him so hard to watch. That stops feeling like a character arc. It starts to feel like an experiment. And the subject of that experiment isn't just Subaru, it's all of us. The author shows you someone who looks like you. And you sit there wondering, could I endure this? Would I give up? Would I find the strength to keep going after all that? And honestly, I didn't always like my answer. I'm not going to pretend this is easy to process. After some episodes of Re:Zero, my mind just wouldn't settle. Not because of monsters, not because of action, but because of the thoughts that kept going. What would I do by loop 20? Would I keep fighting or not? Is there a limit to how much a person can care, or at some point do you just start accepting the pain as normal? These are uncomfortable questions, ReZero asks them on purpose and doesn't let you walk away from them. That's why after certain episodes, I can't just move on to the next one and forget everything. That feeling comes back the next morning when you're on the bus, staring out the window. It's a rare quality for any piece of media, and I didn't expect to find it in an anime. Yeah, there are moments where the main character's suffering doesn't feel like a narrative choice, but more like a tool. Moments where it seems like the author pushes him further, not because the story needs it, but because they can. Because the audience will accept it. And that's probably the only thing about ReZero that genuinely bothers me. That thin line between honest portrayal and darkness for the sake of darkness sometimes gets crossed, but even then, ReZero is still more honest than 90% of anime. ReZero isn't a story about a boy who comes back to life. It's a story about what a person is capable of when they have no choice but to keep going. And whether you're ready to honestly ask yourself, could I do the same? I love this anime. It's one of the best, but sometimes the best things are the most unsettling because they feel real. That's why I'm afraid of ReZero. So which loop would break you? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And if this video resonated with you, just hit subscribe. And remember, this is just anime, not real life.